Would it be legal for police in Arkansas to kill suspected drug dealers on a boat in an overturned lake? The answer is no, it would not be legal.
It's like saying,
hang on, Senator. The answer is no, it would not be legal to kill.
Tom Cotton on Friday was on CNN. Tom Cotton on Sunday tried to clean up his mess and went on the Sunday shows. It didn't go well for him because on Friday he was embarrassed, so much so that he shared like a 25-second clip of a more than 6-minute interview. I think it was about 6 minutes. The only part that he could actually share in his own social media that wasn't sullied by the fact that he was frightened into submission because of his idiocy was that. Anyway, but I want to remind you about Tom Cotton, the moron senator from Arkansas. Arkansas, get it together with the people you choose to elect to high office. It has been a nightmare for decades. But I want to remind you that Tom Cotton, there is never a use of the military that Tom Cotton disapproves of, unless maybe it's humanitarian aid, unless it's in the act of providing aid and comfort to allies, then no. But if it's committing war crimes on the high seas, aye, aye, sir, I'm Tom Cotton. I'm here to defend it. If it's dispatching troops onto the streets of the United States of America to beat and batter protesters, he's here for it. Remember, back in 2020, when Tom Cotton got the pages of the New York Times in this op-ed entitled, "Send in the troops. The nation must restore order. The military stands ready." He wanted American troops to be dispatched, deployed onto the streets of the United States to quell protesters who were exercising their freedom of speech protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution that he has sworn an oath to support and defend. Not only as a United States Senator, but also when he was in the military himself. And this op-ed was such dog shit, such fucking nonsense, that the New York Times, when you go to it right now, has this editor's note appended before you even get to the part where you're going to read it. They wrote, "After publication, this essay met strong criticism from many readers and many Times colleagues, prompting editors to review the piece and the editing process. Based on that review, we have concluded that the essay fell short of our standards and should not have been published." It was so fucking terrible. The New York Times says, "Oh man alive, we should not have published that. That was terrible. That was garbage." I'm paraphrasing, obviously. Well, Friday, this man who writes garbage that should never have been published was on CNN, and John Berman was holding his feet to the fire about his justifications for war crimes committed, murder committed by Pete Hegseth and, by extension, Donald Trump, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. Watch this.
Let me ask you this specific question. Would it be legal for police in Arkansas to kill suspected drug dealers on a boat in an overturned lake?
Well, John, let me go back to the premise of your question. The Washington Post reported that Pete Hegseth had given an unlawful order of no quarter or no one left alive or kill them all. Pete Hegseth denied that last week, and it didn't deny that there was a second strike. Mitch Bradley and Dan Cain both flatly denied that yesterday as well, which some of the Democrats who watched that video and got those briefings confirmed. So that was what the Washington Post reported. That is a total and complete lie. I just respectfully disagree with my Democratic friends here. I think the problem they have is not with the second strike, it's with the first strike and every other strike on these boats. They think the entire operation is not well-founded. I just disagree with them. I think the analogy I would draw is not Arkansas police officers dealing with American citizens. If those boats were loaded with bombs or missiles headed for the United States, I don't think anyone would dispute that we had every right and indeed a duty to intercept them. But those drugs detonate like a bomb all across Arkansas and all across America, killing hundreds of Arkansans and hundreds of thousands of Americans. Our government has a duty to protect our communities from those drugs.
Senator,
that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Can I just take this in pieces? And we first answer my question. Would it be legal for police in Arkansas to kill suspected drug dealers in an overturned boat in a lake in Arkansas? Just answer that, and then I will address your question on the other thing.
John, the premise of your question is not well founded. Criminals in Arkansas are not foreign nationals who are affiliates of a foreign terrorist designated organization.
The answer is no, it would not be legal.
It's like saying
hang on, Senator. The answer is no, it would not be legal to kill them in a lake. But let me ask a follow-up question. If they are terrorists, when did Congress pass the authorized use of force to attack them?
John, the reason why your question is not well founded is like saying, would Barack Obama be okay droning an American citizen when he was president like he did to Anwar al-Awlaki over in the Middle East? These are totally different categories. The
Senator,
president
that's why I asked.
That's why
I asked when Congress passed the authorized use of military force. There was an authorized use of military force against terrorists. I'm not saying what he did was legal or not, but that's what they based it on. In this case, when was the authorized use of military force to attack suspected drug dealers off the coast of Venezuela?
John, the president has inherent authority as the commander-in-chief under the Constitution to protect America using our armed forces against a foreign terrorist organization.
John Berman asking the same questions I've been asking for a week now. If you have a truckload of drugs, I said this last week, and police just murdered everybody in the van, just exploded the van, people would be outraged because that is not due process. What they're doing is an alleged crime, and crimes are dealt with courts, investigations, indictments, convictions, and sentencing. Due process. Right, Tom? You know about due process, right, Tom? Right, Tom? Trying to stretch my neck out like Tom Cotton's, because he's like a giraffe. It's as much as Donald Trump talks about Adam Schiff having a little pencil neck. Woo, boy, Tom Cotton. If he ever turned Democrat, Donald Trump would have a huge or a thin target, I guess. Anyway, Tom Cotton, all of my terrible invectives and jokes aside, tried to make up for his falling on his face on CNN. So he went to Meet the Press and tried to explain away the same type of thoughts and theories about this. And Kristen Welker, to her credit, it's surprising enough to me, because she's usually wildly terrible at her job, actually had a good response holding Tom Cotton to account.
He continued to talk about, one of them took off his shirt as if he's trying to stunt him. But again, your colleagues, some of them saying, look, they were waving their arms around. Isn't it possible that even the act of taking off a T-shirt could have been part of an attempt to get attention for help?
Or it could have been an attempt to signal to another cartel boat to come pick them up and pick up the cargo.
But is there confirmation of what they were doing and what their intentions were?
For Admiral Bradley's decision, it doesn't really matter what they were doing. They were on that boat. That boat was still a valid target. They were not in a state of distress on a plank of wood in the ocean like subsequent survivors were. And when that was the case in October, our military did the right thing. It sent a vessel, it picked them up, it took them back to shore.
You're saying...
Yeah, well, I guess they could have been surrendering. They also could have been gesturing for another boat to pick them up. They also could have been gesturing for ice cream cones, Tom. They also could have been signaling to the aliens that control your brain that they needed to come getting picked up. It could have been that too. Why would you think it would be the most obvious thing, like signaling for help or, hey, stop, don't kill us, we're just fishermen? Well, oh, of course, it must be something else, some wild, unlikely explanation. Why go with the most simple explanation? Yeah, they deserve to die because it could have been a host of other things, says Tom Cotton, senator representing the state of Arkansas. Garbage arguments from garbage human beings. What do you think? I'm going to have to tape this together now. What do you think? I invite you to this conversation. Those from Arkansas, I invite you to this conversation. Those reasonable people in Arkansas, a state in which I used to live, by the way. Madison County, Arkansas, as a child for a brief period of time. Lived on a little farm with goats and sheep and horses. It was very bucolic. You can commute. I'm sick, guys. It is really starting to take its toll. I'm glad this is the last thing. Sound off in the comments. Let me know. You can do it on Facebook or YouTube. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me, daily@dollemore.com. I'm going to go take a nap. I was going to say be more like me and less like Tom Cotton, but you could find somebody else to be more like than me. You don't want to be sick, and, you know, I'm kind of a dipshit anyway. So don't be Tom Cotton. Be genuine and take care of one another.